Aotearoa, and hello world. You are listening to the Yeah Nah podcast, the official podcast of the New Zealand Skeptics. I'm Bronwyn Rideout, and with me are my usual co-hosts, Mark Honeychurch
Hey.
and Katrina Borthwick.
Kiddo.
And back with us for her second visit, we have the lovely Dr. Siouxsie Wiles.
Hello.
So I was just taking a look at our podcast archive, and you were last on the podcast with Gwen Isaac back in, I guess it was August 2023. So it's been just over 2 years since we've had you on.
Yes.
That's too long. We should have got you on a long time before that. I'm not blaming it on you. I'm blaming it on us for not reaching out and saying, hey, Siouxsie, we should talk to you. Definitely our fault.
But you have been busy. You've put out a really successful fundraising endeavor. And I think when we last had you here a couple of years ago, but you still had that court case was just kind of underway. So why don't you just give us a bit of an update about all the things that have been happening in the past 24 months?
Yeah, so I guess when I came on, as you say, with Gwen Isaac, we were talking about the film Misinformation, which Gwen had made. So she'd been filming me since the beginning of the pandemic and had made this film that really captured how I became this sort of, just somebody who was attacked by people who don't believe in COVID or didn't agree with the way New Zealand dealt with the pandemic and everything. And I guess what's kind of important to say about Gwen's film is that I had no control over what story she decided to tell. She was just sort of filming me. And that's the story she decided to tell about this sort of growing harassment and threats that I was facing as a COVID communicator. The film came out at about the same time as I basically ended up in employment court. So I took my employer, the University of Auckland, to employment court over just the way they responded to me becoming this target for harassment and abuse. And for what, in the last 2 years, that hearing happened. So we had a 3-week hearing in the employment court. It's a pretty awful thing, really, sitting there for days and days while people from the university, very senior managers from the university, shit talk you.
Just quickly, how frustrating is it? Because from what I know of courtroom dramas, which might not be reality, but it seems like lay people get told off a lot for speaking when they're not meant to. Given that I guess mainly your lawyer is meant to speak for you, is it frustrating to hear these things coming from the other side and not be able to respond immediately?
Actually, it was more hurtful than frustrating. So I actually it was really upsetting. So I actually didn't stay for most of the questioning. I certainly didn't stay for the reading of people's affidavits. So the way it basically worked was we all read our affidavits, which was basically the cases that we were making. I said a bunch of stuff and then everybody responded to that. And then I got the opportunity to respond. So you read your thing and then you get questioned by your lawyer and then the other side's lawyer and then your lawyer has an opportunity to fix any damage you might have done type thing. So it was me and my experts first. And so I had a bunch of people who were basically providing evidence for me. So the upshot was that I'd spent with my colleagues probably over 1.5 years trying to get the university to essentially make these policies that they already had in place for supporting staff who were being harassed by people outside the university, to make those policies fit for purpose. Because it became very clear when I started interacting with people that there was just this idea that online harassment is it was all our own fault. You shouldn't be using social media, if you can't take the heat, get out the kitchen type thing. And this sort of a big mental block around the fact that stuff is harmful and that it could turn into real world violence.
I could understand.
Right? I mean, this is exactly what the mosque attack was basically online violence turning into real world violence. There's so many examples of it. So we'd been trying for over 1 year to get that resolved, and then it didn't resolve, and we ended up with like 3 failed mediations and then finally ended up in court. So it was this huge case where I had all these people who were like security experts and disinformation experts to talk about what the policies were, what they should be, what I was experiencing, and all this kind of stuff. One of the arguments the university made was that because my COVID communication was not part of my job, so science communication wasn't part of my job, they had no obligation to protect my health and safety. So we had people who basically came and argued against that. So it was just this very long, like 10 days of evidence or a week of evidence. And then basically the other side gets to put their side. And that's when all the shit talking starts. And it's just, it's crazy. And I guess one of the really difficult things is that you can only go on the evidence that's been submitted, and all that stuff gets submitted weeks before, right? In fact, it's about 3 or 4 months before the hearing date is when you put all your final papers in, and then the other side gets an opportunity to respond to them, and then you get a chance to respond to that. And it's all done by this sort of like timelines. And the university pulled this really interesting move where just a few days before we were due to go to court, they wanted to introduce some new evidence. And this
Oh,
meant either we let them introduce it and then it delayed the hearing if we wanted to respond, because that then sort of resets the clock and you've got to do this. Well, you've got now 6 weeks to respond and then they get 6 weeks, da da da. Or we just let it go without responding. That basically ended up being the thing that we had to do. Otherwise, the case would have been delayed again because it was supposed to have been in 2022. Anyway, so they then get to do all their stuff and put all their evidence forward. I mostly just stayed away when that was happening because it's just horrible hearing them say awful things about me and about my communication. Some of the stuff was even stuff that I was getting from harassers. And then to see that sort of stuff coming from the university at the same time was pretty awful. But yeah, anyway, so that happened. And so it was a 3-week hearing. One of the things that was quite frustrating was that on one of the days when somebody from HR was giving evidence about how amazing their policies now were and how everything, was all tickety-boo, I got a message to say, hey, Siouxsie, where are you today? Because we've just seen a whole bunch of anti-vaxxers think you're at a conference and they're coming to get you. Well, I'm not at a conference. I'm at the employment court. And I had to look online and it turned out there was a vaccination conference happening. 2 very prominent people were speaking at it. Who were also, if they hadn't found me, they would have been very happy finding these other people. So I contacted those people and said to them, hey, just so you know, some people are coming looking for me. Be very happy if they find you. Please let the organizers know that this is happening. And frankly, people should know already because the university is supposed to be monitoring for threats against us. So they should have found out about this anyway. Of course, they didn't know about it. And so these people contacted because the event was being held at the university. So they contacted the organizers and the university to say, hey, there's this threats being made. And then security came at the end of the day to escort, because the anti-vaxxers did come and they had a little demonstration outside. And then at the end of the day, when people were leaving, so it was a man and a woman, and the man was escorted by security and the woman was left to her own devices. This was all happening on the day that HR were going, we're monitoring for threats, everything's perfect, security know what to do. They have a list of, of affected staff and people, and it was like, and it killed right then. And there's nothing we could say about it because it was happening in real time and wasn't in the papers. Yeah, anyway, so that happened. And then we had to wait for the judge to make her judgment, which was a very hard sort of 6 months or so. And then she did her ruling and it was mostly good. So she basically mostly found in my favor. It was complicated and there were lots of moving parts. And the lawyers had always said, you're not going to win. It's highly unlikely you're going to win every claim that you put forward. But I won the majority of them. And so I was awarded $20,000 in damages. The amount was low, partly because damages in New Zealand are very low, but because I hadn't collapsed or hurt myself or any of those kinds of things that had shown the type of, that I'd been so concerned about my employment and remaining employed that I had tried to hide the impact of it. And my resilience counted against me when it came to the damages awarded. And then the judge basically said, go away and come up with an agreement between yourselves about costs. And so what normally happens is the person who wins the majority of the arguments is the one who's awarded costs. And it's kind of done on the sort of sliding scale of how much did you win. So my lawyers went away and they did all this, right? How much did Siouxsie win? And we put an offer back to the university and they immediately rejected it and came back saying, if you don't walk away right now with nothing other than your $20,000, and we're going to come after you for $500,000 of our costs. And that was awful. And it meant that we had to go back to the judge to make a decision. So that cost another $15,000. So we had to find the money for that, go back to the judge. And then basically earlier this year, she basically ruled in my favor. She confirmed that I was the winner because the university were arguing that it was a draw. And so they shouldn't have to pay anything. And she confirmed that I was the winner. And she basically ruled that they had to pay me $200,000, which was more than I had offered to accept. when we'd done our calculations. Yeah, so that sort of put an end to everything, like drew a line under it earlier this year. So it's been going on since, the legal action has been going on since late 2021. So it's a long process. And so I got essentially $225,000 out of it, but I spent over 600 and something. So I've ended up about $400,000 out of pocket. A couple of weeks ago, I started a crowdfunding campaign to see if anybody wanted to contribute, because lots of people have asked me over the years, is there any way we can help? And people can't help while it's still a live case. So now that it's all over, I was able to ask for help, and it's been amazing. So I'm doing it on Pledge Me, and people have been pledging money. It's been incredible. It's up to about 170,000, I think. So it's awesome. I can pay off the bank loans.
So I think that was the most major part for you, wasn't it? Basically, there were some loans you had where you were just paying interest every month. And from what I've read on the campaign, I mean, that was just very frustrating that it was just wasted money.
And just a reminder every month that this has happened and is still happening because I'm still paying for it, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, of the money that we're out of pocket, about 40,000 is interest on loans. That's how much money we borrowed to do it, because,
Wow.
legal action is expensive. And yeah, it's been crazy amounts of money.
And on the other side, the university has spent a whole bunch of money as well on its lawyers and the entire case.
And they had more lawyers than me. And they also, at the end for the hearing, they got a specialist King's Counsel in to do. So King's Counsel have got more experience of doing hearings and stuff, kind of court time. So they even brought in a more expensive specialist to argue their case for them. So yeah, they spent well over, so it was 1.2 million excluding GST, which of course, because they get to offset the GST because they're a business. Unlike me, I have to pay the GST. And then there would have been more costs because they obviously didn't accept my offer. So we had to go back to the judge for costs and things. And then there's the money that they've had to pay me. So it's been a ridiculous waste of taxpayer and students' money, frankly, all for something. One of the important rulings was that, so the legal action started because we put in personal grievances. We basically laid out to the Vice Chancellor, this is the issues we've been having, and basically we want you to resolve this kind of for us. And she rejected that. And the judge basically said she was wrong to reject the personal grievance. So she should have accepted that, and everything should have ended in sort of mid-2021. And instead, we all spent enormous amounts of money to get essentially the same result several years later. Crazy.
And that was the hill they wanted to die on, and they did.
Well, I guess what's been really fascinating, both the experience that I've had, but also when it became public that I was taking legal action. So that would have been in January 2022. So the first part of the legal action is to go via the Employment Relations Authority. And so we filed with them, but we basically said we actually just want to go straight to employment court, because whatever happens at the Employment Relations Authority, one of us is going to disagree with the results. So can we just leave that aside and go straight to employment court, please? And it was good because we got a chance to see each other's arguments. So that was when we first realized the university were arguing that either communication wasn't part of my job and stuff like that. So when the judgment from that came out, which was essentially, what are you talking about? Surely this is part of her job. Yes, Siouxsie, you may go to court. you may move to the next stage. That became public, and then people started to get in touch with me and saying, oh, I hope you're able to carry on. I started legal action and I had to stop because I ran out of money. And so it seems like a tactic is to just drag things out until people ran out of money. And that was very much a tactic we saw in play in my case. And I guess they underestimated how much I was able to get to spend on this, because it's not the kind of money, it was over 600,000 in the end. And, that's not the kind of money most people have. I mean, we remortgaged our house. We, got help from friends and family. It was like crazy. We were in the position where we, could remortgage our house, right? So not many people will be able to do that. And I guess that's what they were banking on. And then they misunderestimated me.
So what was driving you? Obviously, at any point you could have walked away, and the sooner you walk away, the less of a loss you've made. Did you feel fairly comfortable? And was it eventually, if I can get to the end, because I know I'm right, I'm going to get the money? Or was it more a case of, I need to prove that the university's wrong and fix the problems that the university has? Do you have any idea in your head what your motivation was driving you?
I was very clear in my head that you can't have a policy if it's not going to do what it needs to do, and as the harassment against me and other staff was growing, and it wasn't just, harassment about COVID, it was harassment of Maori and Pacifica staff, there's all sorts of stuff going on where academics are being targeted and attacked. And so you can't have these policies if they don't actually work. And the fact that the institution refused to listen and to fix them, or was doing the bare minimum, kind of being dragged along doing the bare minimum, just for me, that was just not good enough. And so that was the motivation, was like, if you fix this for me, you fix it for everybody. And this has to be fixed because we're entering this crazy time where universities and academics are under attack. And so we have to have policies that are fit for purpose. And that was my motivation. And I was just like, God damn it, I'm going to keep going until, I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to back down. And, we had 3 mediations, and I can't talk about what happened in mediation or let you even guess what the offers were to settle. But yeah, I mean, they clearly weren't good enough.
Okay.
So I have a question. What is your relationship with the university now? Because you're still listed as a staff member at University of Auckland, and also tying back to our previous podcast episode and what was happening in the misinformation documentary, a lot of your public-facing work, like a lot of those talks that you're giving and that you charge fees for, that's money that's going directly to your lab. So what is the health of your lab like now?
So I'm still at the University of Auckland, and that has partly been because I did nothing wrong, so I don't see why I should have to leave, especially since some of the people who made my life an utter misery still get to keep their much more highly paid jobs. There has been retaliation, so it's definitely difficult at times in certain things. But, the vast majority of staff are really supportive of me. I am forever now stained as a troublemaker. I don't think I shall ever be promoted to professor. I have, never had a performance-related pay rise. I can't imagine that will change in the future. But, times are hard in academia. Universities all around the world are kind of crumbling. I'm kind of grateful I've got a job and that I can still do the research that I want to do. So I'm just trying to focus on a new project that I'm starting. I'm trying to focus on research, trying to focus on the stuff that makes me happy and less on the toxic environment that I'm in.
So we talked about your motivations. I'm interested in the flip side of this. So what do you think the university's motivations were? Do you think that was about money, was about basically if they could bankrupt you and just keep it going long enough that then they wouldn't lose money? Or do you think for them, they genuinely thought that they were in the right and that they didn't need to beef up their ability to respond to these kinds of harassment problems?
I don't know. I mean, at many times in the last 5 years, I've gone, is there no grown-up in the room who I can talk to about this, please? I think it was a combination of having people who thought they knew what was going on, but actually didn't. There were some people who were just actively toxic towards me and didn't like the fact that I was a popular science communicator. Some of it was sort of real conservatism about who gets to communicate about research. There was a whole bunch of toxic things happening. And I think from what people have told me, this is just the default position. The default position is just fight it until they give up. So I think that was just they were doing what they do best, really.
Okay, so possibly it had worked for them before, so if they just do it again, why wouldn't it work the next time?
I assume so.
Huh.
I mean, I was really shocked after basically losing. They still came back with sort of financial bullying. It was like, sorry, what? This judgment do you not understand? One of the things that was very upsetting was, so we all got the judgment a couple of hours before it became public. And bang on the time it became public, the Vice-Chancellor used her access to the all-staff email to send an all-staff email that basically had a sort of statement about the case, which is essentially, this has happened. And I started getting emails from people to go, oh my God, Siouxsie, I'm so sorry to hear that you lost. It's absolutely devastated for you. So they had spun the judgment in such a way that left people thinking they were the winner. And then, it was a big news story because nothing else was happening in New Zealand at the time. So it made the 6 o'clock news, it made all this. And, the news was Siouxsie Wiles wins the case. So all these staff were going, wait a minute, why? Wait, what? You did what? Like, what? Like, it was like at no point in the previous 2 years has anybody in senior management said, I'm really sorry, Siouxsie, we should, this should never have happened. We should have fixed it. Like, there's been no public or private apology. When we did the costs thing, they just carried on exactly exactly the behavior that got us in court in the first place. And I just could not quite believe it. So if
I'm struggling to understand why they would push it that far unless their hands were totally clean. Like, you don't risk it in the authority. And at the point where you're getting $1.2 million worth of legal advice, it's clearly not a straightforward, this never happened kind of situation. So it is complicated. Do you really want to? Because I guess there's the risk of losing, but then there's the risk of wasting everyone's time and money, which is exactly what happened. And so that's cost them $1.2 million of their cost plus what was awarded to you. That's massive.
Felt like there has not been a grown-up in the room to just go, what the hell? Can we just fix this? I wasn't asking for anything difficult. I was asking for them to get some experts in who sort their shit out and for them to actually get educated about online harassment, and fix these policies. Like, it would have cost a lot less, frankly. Somehow the people involved just had these blinkers on where they really seem to think, well, and this is what they put in their evidence, that basically it was all my fault. And if I just stopped using social media and nothing would happen, then that's bullshit. Because, people, like lots of the harassment was happening, like, not even on platforms that I use or used at the time. If Simon Thornley gave an interview, the harassment would come as a wave, right? So even when I disappeared, even when I did nothing, things happened. Like, the evidence was really clear what was actually happening, but we just had some people who just refused to educate themselves. And my mind boggles.
It's not new either. I mean, pre-COVID, I've seen people protected by their employers where it's nothing to do with the employer. It's their ex or whatever is doing things and trying to get them fired. And they've stopped them being able to be tagged on social media so that someone can't go in and post on the employer's website or Facebook, and made sure that their phone numbers don't work and, like, literally just screened the person off. So that this online harassment thing is something that employers were dealing with pre-COVID. So I don't think they can go, oh my gosh, this is new. This is something we have no knowledge of.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this was precisely the evidence we gave.
Yes.
And then we had to critique all the policies and bring people in who could say, well, this is what you should do. One of the very first things they should have done is basically trained me and others how to respond if you end up with an in-person interaction, right? Because you don't know how people are going to respond when something happens. Some people forget their own name, forget how to use their phone, like the stress and the adrenaline and everything is just coursing through your veins. And so the security expert we had was like, well, the minute you become a targeted person, these are the things that should have been done. And 5 years later, I've still not had those things.
So you've not had those things from the university, but are you seeing there are steps being done by the university? Are they stepping up and fixing it and it's just taking them time? Or are they still reluctant to fix the things that they're meant to be fixing here?
It's a bit hard to say. I mean, so there's a lot now that's in place that wasn't before, which really has only happened because of this kind of dragging them in to do it. For the very first time, I've now had a personalized risk assessment, which is the thing that we started asking for in 2020. So there's been a wonderful man who's ex-military who's been kind of going through the policies right now. And so he's written his report. I was told I would get to see it. The university are currently responding to that. So I'm hoping that if there are still gaps that he identifies, that they get fixed. This has been a huge thing to get him to do this work, because that was something we asked for over and over again. What they did, so their version of it was they got somebody from KPMG to do what they said in their report was not a risk assessment, which basically was just a list of things that I'm doing wrong that I should do better. And it was like, and some of them were stuff I couldn't even do, or were things that if I did them would make the harassment worse. So it was like, well, I don't know whose expert you are, but this is not helping. Whereas this other guy's been amazing, precisely because he works at, he's ex-military. This is actually the space that he works in. He completely understands all this stuff.
I would have thought a security specialist is the person you would normally get, in my experience, you could get involved where you have some kind of safety risk and then you would and they would have that kind of background.
So it's finally happening now. But that's almost
Great. Yeah.
because my case has now sort of moved to the risk office rather than where it was sitting within HR. And so perhaps an office that actually focuses on risk understands a little more, maybe. So anyway, we'll see what the report looks like and whether anything actually happens as a result of that. But there's certainly things are better now than they were. There's supposed to be monitoring happening that looks for threats. I mean, I don't know whether I've had a report from someone else about what's been happening while my crowdfunding's been going on, because that has resulted in some things. I haven't heard anything from the university about whether they pick those threats up.
Okay, so fresh threats when you're asking for money to recoup some of your costs from this. So basically anything you do, and as you said earlier, like sometimes anything you don't do, somebody else does something, and that's enough that you get harassment. How are you dealing with this? Is it getting easier over time? Is like reading this and seeing it, is it something where it stings less or is less scary, or is it still pretty horrific to receive this kind of stuff?
It's more, my concern has always been it becoming real, like it something happening in the real world. So I've come to terms with the fact that there are this group of people who do not like me and want bad things to happen to me. And by bad things, I mean, for most of them, it would just be like imprisonment, right? So there's people who want that. And then there is a small group of people who actually want me dead. And it's those that I struggle with, obviously, because I am worried that one day one of them might decide to follow through on that.
Yeah.
But it's, and it's weird. So it's not until I leave New Zealand that I realize the weight that I'm carrying, because as soon as I leave, I feel lighter. I feel like, can stop. Like I obviously just am hyper aware of my surroundings all the time. And it's just become second nature now, right? I think this is the thing that women often do, but I'm just like hyper that way all the time. It's not just, is it dark? Is it, I'm just permanently hyper vigilant. So I don't really even think about it anymore. And it's not until I go somewhere else and I'm not hypervigilant that I realize, no, that's actually quite hard. So I quite like going away.
Yeah.
I think like Australia, let's go and have a week of not being hypervigilant, right?
Wow,
But
that's a lot to carry with you, dealing with that every day. God.
Yeah, but that's my life now, and I'm not sure when it's gonna end. I would say that based on what I've been reading over the last few weeks, is not going to be anytime soon. But the really sad thing, I mean, at least I am still here and I'm hypervigilant. And there are times when it's not like, yes, times when in large crowds of people, I don't feel particularly safe. So I'm definitely more of a hermit than I used to be. I'm trying not to, because that obviously impacts my family when I won't go and do anything. But I went to see the movie Prime Minister recently. So this is the movie about Jacinda Ardern that's been made by her husband. And so it's got a lot of footage of them just, being a family and dealing with this stuff. And she can't live in New Zealand anymore, right? It is so unsafe for her that she can't live here anymore. That's why she's not here. That's why she's overseas. And there's a bit at the end of the film where she's sort of reflecting on this. And, she just sort of says, well, like New Zealand's home. And my heart broke for her because she clearly would love to be here, but she can't. And that's what it is, that these people who want us dead, and it seems like the way our society's going, this dehumanization of us, the language people use, I mean, it is all leading to somebody deciding to take into their own hands, well, I'm going to do something about this. And I am particularly concerned about what's going to happen when the second COVID inquiry reports back. Because it's very clear from reading these people's material that they think we're going to, tribunals are going to come, and myself and, Jacinda and Michael Baker and others are going to be in front of the tribunals, and we are going to be prosecuted, and some of them would like us to be executed, right? And that's what they think is going to happen. And, it's because that's what they think the evidence is telling the commissioners. And so what's going to happen when their report comes out and that's not the conclusion? I wonder. And I don't know whether anybody's really thinking about that, whether anybody's really thinking what's going to happen next year when that comes out. I got sent, what are they called? Voices for Freedom, put together this ginormous booklet of all their evidence. They firmly believe, and, they wanted all this evidence before the commissioner, and they sent me a copy with a handwritten note. Siouxsie, these are the pages you need to look at. How are you responding to this? Are you basically sorry for what you've done to us? It's like, somebody's bankrolling that, right? So there's money behind some of these people. And what are they going to say when it doesn't come their way?
Yeah.
The commissioners are following the evidence.
And certainly not going to say you should execute someone. Like,
No.
what the hell?
That's exactly what they did, isn't it? With the Nuremberg 2.0 website that was up a couple of years ago, where people could go on and vote for the people they wanted to see hanged. And I think you and Jacinda were both top 10 in that list. It was horrific to see, and horrific to see how many hundreds of people, whether they'd follow through with it or not, were happy to put publicly on a website that they thought that you should be killed. It was absolutely disgusting.
Those people are still sharing lists like that on Telegram and other things, right?
Yeah.
And that was shared again just last week with me on it, as she's still here, crimes against humanity, So I don't know if this is ever going to go away.
So worried about children and teenagers under 16 on social media. They really need to be worried about so many of these adults.
That's the really sad thing about the way these sorts of legislations are going. The way to deal with social media is just to stop young people from using it. It's like, no, the way to deal with social media is to make social media safe for everybody. As soon as you turn 16, it doesn't magically, you aren't magically able to cope with that kind of stuff. It's the sort of thing that nobody should be facing.
Like abstinence fixes teen pregnancies, right? We just know it doesn't.
Of evidence.
Abstinence doesn't fix abstinence.
No, I think education is normally the key for a lot of the world's ills, and this doesn't seem any different.
Make it forbidden, that'll fix it.
Damn, okay.
It feels like there was a real gender kind of thing coming through, some of the stuff that I just sort of hear around the edges about you and Jacinda, and I'm like, would they have been saying what they're saying now if this were male? I think there would have been some attacks, but it would have been quite different in nature.
Yeah, and it's very clear. Michael Baker and Ashley Bloomfield and stuff, they have people who hate them too, but the abuse they get is very different. And it's different in volume as well. It's different in volume and it's different in nature. The stuff that Jacinda and I get is very much around our looks. It's just trying to both dehumanize us, basically say we know nothing and that we're sort of shills for a new world order. Well, you pick your conspiracy, we're kind of in it. The stuff that guys get is different. It's definitely different. And they certainly don't get the sexual violence that we get. Again, it's quite disgusting stuff.
I hope there's enough sort of support there that you're feeling as well. It's kind of, it won't make it go away. But
that's one of the great things about the crowdfunding campaign, actually, because I've been reluctant to do it because it's not, it's weird asking for help.
Yeah, that was one of my questions I wanted to ask is when did you decide to do it and how hard was it to make that decision? Because you've never struck me as the kind of person that would go out and do that proactively. Did people have to convince you? Has this been months of thinking about it?
It's been years of people saying, are you going to do a crowdfunding campaign? I want to contribute to your thing. So from the very beginning, people have been saying, we want, is there somewhere we can donate some money type thing? And I've been like, yeah. Let's just wait till it's all over kind of stuff. And then there's definitely been friends and family have been like, you need to do this now because actually for a lot of people, this is the way that they get to say thank you, right? They want to help. And so you should let them help. And I just felt I felt a bit weird, but yeah, various people talked me into it. And it's one of the reasons I've done a Pledge Me campaign rather than a Give a Little. So the crowdfunding campaign is a campaign where people get reward, right? So it's an exchange. So people are getting something in exchange. And part of it's been amazing what people will offer as well. So those who maybe, lots of after people have been like, oh yeah, I could do this or I could do that, so there's some quite strange is maybe the wrong word, but some really amazing things. Photographers have been like, oh yeah, I can donate some prints and stuff. So it's been I feel like I've just been wrapped in the most enormous hug, like a hug by thousands of people, right? Who have just said, and even those who can't, sharing and helping me reach other people is a way of contributing, right? So it's just been the most amazing thing. And then people have left comments on the site, and it's just like some of them have had me in absolute tears. You know, there was one in particular, it was from somebody who said, I'm a frontline healthcare worker. You know, you saved many of our lives. Like, you know, they get it. They know what was happening overseas. They know what would have happened to us had COVID taken off in March 2020. Thousands of people would have died, and lots of those would have been our frontline healthcare workers. So, you know, it's just like, anyway, so it's been amazing. And it's just been lovely. And the comments that people have left have just been wonderful. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you've been asking for 400,000.
Asked for 10,000.
You asked for 10,000, okay, with a limit of
asked for 10,000.
400,000.
I said, this is what I'm out of pocket. I asked for 10,000.
Yeah.
We got that within, I don't know, it didn't take long at all. So they were like, right, you need to set your stretch goal. So I was like, okay, 75,000. And then we got out like the next day. I was like, oh, okay, do we set another one? And I did put this post out going, like, do we set another one? This seems ridiculous now. And lots of people would be like, set another one. You're all good. Keep going.
You're at 171,414, which is still less than half of what you're out of pocket, but that's really good. I don't know whether you know that we basically, we let our members know on the weekend in our newsletter, and we've offered to donation match up to $2,000. So we've basically said to our members, if you can just show that you've made a donation, we will match that. And I think we're up to 1,085 so far of that, which is really good. But I'm on the website now, and I think I'm going to donate live donation. So if you can talk about something, anything, like these rewards, a lot of them have already gone, but there is a poster here that I like the look of, the misinformation poster, a signed copy. I mean, that I'll put it up on the wall behind me. I think I'm going to.
Are you going to put it right next to your X-Files poster?
I think it should go back next to the X-Files one, wherever that is. Yeah, I think that would be a nice place to put it. So yeah, you talk about something and I'm going to make a donation and the skeptics will match it. So we're going to double my donation for free, which is awesome.
That's so amazing. Thank you so much. It's just, yeah, and it has been an absolutely incredible thing. And, you know, it's been just people sharing it. Yeah, I've just been blown away, as I say. Harassment started almost immediately, and it's felt really good that. And also, it was kind of interesting because I think for a lot of people, they're like, oh, you know, this is a thing of the past, and, you know, I hope you're okay now. And so to show, no, I haven't done any communication about science for like 2 years. I haven't talked about COVID for 3 years, and doesn't matter as soon as I show my face. So it was sort of good to show people that as well. So I screenshotted a lot of the comments that came on that first day, and then showed people this is what happens. This is the kind of stuff that, you know, this is what people think about me still all these years after what I did. So I think that was probably also, I mean, it was kind of good education for me. Oh, this stuff is here. Well, what I also did though was I blacked out everybody's names. And there's been a lot of, why have you done that? You know, they should be named and shamed. Tempting, very tempting. But equally, I don't want to be involved in that, right? I don't want, especially if there's 2,000 people who've donated to my crowdfunding campaign, I do not want 2,000 people turning up on somebody's Facebook page, right? I mean, regardless of whether they deserve it or not, it's just not how I roll. So I've just kept it as, no, we're staying anonymous. And I didn't send the worst of them. I was sent some nooses and gallows, and I was like, yeah, I'll save you. You don't need to see those.
God.
But it was quite hard and quite stressful for the first couple of days trying to keep up with just deleting the comments and stuff, blocking people, precisely because I didn't want everybody piling onto them. And that was very, very, very stressful. And in the end, I just made the posts not public anymore so that people would stop commenting on them. Yeah, but yeah, what an ordeal. But it's been amazing. So there's still 2 weeks to go. The donations are definitely tailed off now. So I think we're probably at about, you know, it might tick along for a few more thousand, but I think we're probably there. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, so I have just finished my transaction, signed up. So now, weirdly, I have to forward my email to myself as evidence that I have donated. Done. All right. So that is done. We're not going to accept any rewards. There are some cool rewards for like a high price, but I don't think it would be right that we get ourselves like a fishing trip for one day or something like that. It might be a bit weird. putting the entire skeptics committee on a boat.
There's an option not to take
There-
a reward if you don't want one.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, what's next now? Once the fundraiser's over, we're here 2 or 3 years later. What's your plans?
Well, I mean, I'm going to tell you about my current obsession. I'm really obsessed with menstrual cups right now. I'll just go out and say it. The whole experience of COVID has really made me sort of rethink a lot of things. So I've just turned 50. All my funding has run out for my previous projects. I was doing a project looking for new antibiotics from New Zealand fungi, and that went really well. We found some novel compounds, but basically can't get them funded to move any further. So all the money's run out. My lab is emptying out. And so I had this real okay, so what is next? I'm not dead. I've got a good few years of research left in me. What am I going to do? And I thought I really want to do something that addresses something important and interesting to me that is actually going to have an impact in the short term rather than the long term. And I'm really interested in doing research in a slightly different way, doing it with community, addressing questions community have about something rather than the sort of, entirely the questions that I have. And so I'm basically really interested in women's health. The statistic is that less than 1% of global R&D spend is spent on women's health that is not cancer. So there's tons of things that have never been researched before. So the sort of thing that I've kind of got into is menstrual cups and reusable period products and how safe these are. Because it turns out there's very little research has actually been done. I might actually believe it that there's products that have been used for decades, becoming more and more popular. And there's 6 studies, all quite badly done, that don't actually address any of the things that I think are important questions about their safety. So that's sort of what I'm focused on now. I've been trying to write grants for that for about 18 months. Just got my most recent rejection Thursday. Unsurprisingly, given less than 1% of funding goes towards women's health research. I'm sort of I'm in the space thinking about how we can fund this research and just doing something that, I've got a real question as a microbiologist, and it's something that we could do really quickly. And then I want to give people confidence that they can use these products safely. And so that's kind of what I'm focused on. And who knows what's going to come in the future, but I feel excited. I definitely didn't. I had a bit of a wall last year after the verdict from the court case came out. Is that the right word? The verdict after the judgment came out, and I really hit a wall. I now feel quite well and energized, and so I'm like, bring it on. Let's do something interesting. So, yeah, just want to do good science for people, preferably women.
It's definitely seen a lot of more information in the workplace around not menstrual cups, but maybe that'll follow. But it's just encouraging just to see the acknowledgement there, that there are some challenges and that it's not really, suck it up and deal with it and behave normally. You actually, there is some support out there. Some of it's just a strange land. I'm sitting there going, I don't know any of this stuff. This is insane. How can people not know this basic stuff or ask these questions or even feel that they need to ask these questions about their own body? How do we get into this space? And, part of it, I'm close to your age, so I guess we didn't have that growing up. It was just accepted, this is it or not kind of thing. But it's just, when you think about it, it's ridiculous that it's just this blank and I've never questioned it.
So when I was getting close to thinking this is going to happen at some point soon, I bought Jen Gunter's Menopause Manifesto. And so I was like, I'm going to read the book, and was like, holy shit, what's coming? And then when I went to see my doctor, and I was like, so this is happening to me. And she's like, well, Siouxsie, you've been through a lot, so could be all that. The perimenopause. And it turned out, it was perimenopause.
This is probably like an emerging issue, really for skeptics, because we don't really talk about women's health issues so much. And that sort of disinformation gap is being filled in by a lot of, alternative medicine, alternative healthcare spaces.
Jade legs up your vagina.
And wasp nests.
But also those really weird at-home hormone tests. So rather than going and talking to a gynecologist, talking to your family physician, it's like, okay, do this blood or urine test and send it off to an unregulated lab.
Absolutely. And I guess that's what's really getting me interested in this women's health space, is the way that I want to do this menstrual cups project. But you're right, maybe it'll be a menopause project next, is to do it in collaboration with mentees. So to basically get women together. And I use that term, I mean, so our collective is called Period People Aotearoa, because we do acknowledge that there are people who have periods who are not women, and we don't want them to be left out either. But to get people together and say, right, what's the questions you have about the products that you're using? And then we can figure out, has this been researched? Has this not? But it'll be the same for menopause. What are the questions that people have? How can we make sure that people get access to good information? And if it is, I heard about this vitamin thing, well, we can figure out, is that bullshit or is it not? So, and I want to do that in collaboration with others, bringing together researchers and people with lived experience from all kind of walks of life. I feel like that's the way we do it. So yeah, I'm super excited about the kind of next phase. It's just probably going to be doing it on the smell of an oily rag.
People are interested or want to get involved or even want to put support into Period People, where can they find out more information?
Well, so we have a little website. If you just, can we put stuff in? Do you have somewhere where we can put the website? So we can put, essentially, if you Google Period People Aotearoa, you should be able to find it. I also have a fundraising page on the University of Auckland website. We can link to that if people want to make a donation directly to that research. We're going to be starting with our community hui's next year. We're just planning them right now. Call out's going to be coming. Hey, do you use these products or do you not use these products? Are you interested? Do you want to come and have a chat with us? We'll be doing all that next year. Super excited to see where this goes.
Yes, so I can put a link in the show notes to the website. What I will also do is put a link in the show notes to your crowdfunding effort. For anybody listening to the podcast that can't be bothered opening the show notes, I have set up a shortcut that will forward you to it. So if you go to skeptics.nz/Siouxsie, that will take you to the fundraising. But I know most people won't even know how to spell Susie's name because it's ridiculous and has far too many cool Scrabble letters in it that have high scores. So you can also go to skeptics.nz/Wiles, Wiles, which is a lot easier to spell, and that will also take you to her fundraising page. Just send that to news@skeptics.nz or podcast@skeptics.nz, and then I will add you to the spreadsheet. And once the fundraising is over, we will hand over the money to Siouxsie.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, I think, again, thank you so much for coming back onto the podcast, Siouxsie. We are so happy that, even though the judgment may not have been what we would have liked it to be for you, that you got something out of it is absolutely amazing. And we wish you all the best with what's coming up with their new exciting projects.
One of the things to be really clear, the thing about the judgment is it wasn't just for me, right? What we now have is a legal ruling that companies who have public-facing employers, they have to take care of their health and safety. They have to protect them from this kind of online abuse. So it wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about academics. It was about all kind of public-facing employees in New Zealand. So it was a win for all of us, even if it cost me a lot of money. And I don't regret it.
Yeah, and it is everywhere too. You can see it on all the lawyers' web pages.
Yeah.
Like, there's this judgment. The employers look at this, will help you. So I'm sure they'd like to get involved in that, charge some money, but yeah, it's totally out there. It is a thing. It's a big judgment.
Alrighty. Well, before we say goodbye for this podcast episode, we do have a very quick membership corner. November 28th is going to be the next meeting of the Wellington Skeptics in the Pub. That'll be at 6 p.m. at Chapman Taylor's Cafe and Inn on 113 Mulworth Street. We've been getting lots of new people. It's really been great to see some of the public servants coming through. Just show up. It's great food, good prices, fantastic drinks, and we've been enjoying the new company. December 2nd, Skeptics in the Pub in Auckland at the Dyson Fork. That'll start at 6:30. Keep an eye out for their Facebook page and the meetup page for the most up-to-date information. December 5th, we'll have Skeptics in Cyberspace. That'll start at 6 p.m. We still haven't quite sorted out whether we're going to move the teams, but hopefully
I'm working on it.
Happen sooner rather than later.
I'm working. They rejected us. I asked for a non-profit account and they said, no, we don't meet their criteria. I think we do. So I'm trying to argue, but they won't let me argue with a human. I can only argue with some kind of AI bot or a page on their website. It's really frustrating, but we're going to keep fighting.
It's funny because we were able to we're a nonprofit for profit with Canva. Canva will just be like, yeah, don't pay us anything.
Yep. And
We're
Google
automatically a nonprofit.
and a bunch of other places will just give us free services because we're a charity that's doing educational work, but Microsoft have decided that we're not. I've helped other charity organizations to get free services from Microsoft, and it's never been a problem before. They've just suddenly said no to the skeptics.
So we have our treasurer, Tim, on the case. So hopefully he'll have a solution for us sometime soon. And now for our Dunedin skeptics, we've just been chatting with one of your members, and it's our lovely Josh, and he is hoping to start up the Dunedin skeptics again, at least sometime by early 2026. So watch this space for when the next meeting will be.
Yeah, he popped into our skeptics in Wellington a couple of weeks ago. He was up and it was great to see him. But yeah, it'd be really nice to see the Dunedin skeptics get started again.
And then in terms of bigger events, December 7th at 7:30 p.m. will be our AGM. If you are a paid up member, you would have received the notification in the email. And obviously there'll be another couple coming through as reminders over the next couple of weeks. We have space for new committee members. So if you are interested in joining our wonderful team and you have some time to spare, please email us at committee@skeptics.nz and tell us a little bit more about yourself and what your interest is in joining the committee. And then, of course, the big save the date for the weekend of July 31st to August 2nd, 2026 is going to be the 2026 Skeptics Conference in Christchurch, and we will have our very special guest coming over from the US, which is A Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. So that's going to be both the three of the Novella brothers and the rest of the rogues. We will hopefully have a website up so people can buy their early bird tickets as a Christmas gift. So I think that is all for all the notices. If you have any comments, questions, queries, kudos, or concerns, you can email us either at news@skeptics.nz or podcast@skeptics.nz.
Or not.
No.
No. Just I've had enough feedback recently. I love hearing from people, but just give me a break for a couple of weeks. Don't feel
Okay, so no concerns. No concerns.
Yeah.
Only kudos.
Feel free to not
Kudos
email
only.
me. I am happy with that.
Right. Well, that's it for us for this fortnight. Thank you for listening to the Yana podcast, and ka kite.
Kite.
Bye.
Oh, goodbye.